Hey, what's going on YouTube? Golf Shirt Shooter. And I just wanted to make a video on my reloading room. Just give you a tour around my room and showcase some of the equipment I use. I know there's a lot of videos out there of guys who have basically have done a tour of their reloading room, and I've picked up a lot of ideas of what they do, and I've incorporated that into my reloading situation, as well as you know, my reloading situation has morphed over the years. I used to reload in my garage at the last house I lived at, and when we moved, I decided to dedicate a room, almost dedicate a room to reloading exclusively. So just want to give you a walk around my room and show you some of the tools I use, show you some of the equipment that I load on. And if you have any questions about the specifics of it, I'm not going to get into too many details with any of the tools or the equipment. It's just going to be a general overview. But if there's anything you see that you want to know more about and my thoughts on and my reviews on it, I'll be happy to share that with you. So just leave some feedback and ask about it. So, but without further ado, let me go ahead and get started and kind of show you around the room real quick here. And I apologize for the choppiness and the video camera moving. I'm actually holding the camera with a selfie stick. So I'm a little bit new to the video thing. This is where I'm at with you know, video taking technology. So I ask that you bear with me. All right, so this is a kitchen table actually, and it was our old kitchen table at our last home. We had no place or use for it here, so I decided to put it in the reloading room. I used to do a lot of my case prep work and, you know, loading up primer tubes and chamber checking actually at my desk in my office at my old house. And this table came in handy because we didn't have a use for it, so I figured I'll put it in the reloading room, and you know, I do all my case prep work here and measuring and chamber checking and whatnot. I apologize for the mess. I do have some test rounds that I've reloaded recently, some 45 ACP, some 10 millimeter, but it is a little cluttered. Let's start back here. So these are all my case gauges. The ones in the individual containers here, these are all Dillon case gauges. As you see, I keep them labeled. I label a lot of things. It helps keep me organized. But then I have these guys here, and these are made by a company called Shock Bottle. I bought these off of a website, I believe it was called Dawson Precision. But obviously you can see you can chamber check 100 rounds at a time. I have these in 9mm, 40, 45, and 223. I think they make a few more calibers, but not too many. I've actually wrote them and asked them to make one in 10mm, and they're thinking about it, but they haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. I really need them to. But anyway, these are great. They come in handy with not only chamber checking, but I can actually hold them flush, or I can hold the case up, or the case gauge up flush to a light in the background, and I can check to make sure that the primers are all seated flush as well. So I can do two checks, the case dimensions, and as well as making sure the primers are seated. I have a couple flip trays here. These are Dillon primer flip trays. This here is a case trimming tool. It's made by Gerard Tool Company, I believe. I'm pretty sure a guy makes this in his garage somewhere in Texas, but he does a great job. There are some videos on YouTube you can watch. If you trim a lot of rifle brass, this thing here, it comes in real handy. I did see another one made by, I believe, Anderson Precision. Very similar concept. And it looks like it does a great job too, and I wouldn't be opposed to getting one of those, but I already have one, and I can trim a lot of brass pretty quick. Once this die here is set to the right length, and for 223, I'm trimming at 1.750, and you can trim a lot of brass pretty quick on it. Lyman Case Prep Center comes in handy when I'm deburring, chamfering. This tool here is an RCBS tool that I added onto it, that is used to actually cut out the crimps in military brass or a lot of the rifle brass that I reload. But the Case Prep Center does come in pretty handy. I keep a container of bad ammo, or questionables, as I like to call them. And these are rounds that most of them didn't case gauge, or the primer seated a little bit too easy, or the primer got a little sideways on me. So these are all the rounds that I won't shoot. When this container gets full, I'll discard them appropriately. But all of this is about 35,000 rounds worth of reloading. So this is all of the questionables that I made in about 35,000 rounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I don't think that's pretty bad, or I don't think that's too bad of a defect rate. Here, just a little container that I keep box cutters in, dental pick tools, some scrapers, various tools that I'll use, at the table whenever I need to, I don't know, work on brass or work on whatever. Label maker, if you don't have one, get one. They come in handy. I label almost everything I have. And when you reload multiple calibers, it's easy to lose track of things, and having a label maker does come in handy. This is one set of my calipers here. These are the Mitutoyo, I believe. I paid a lot of money for these. Don't know if it's really necessary, because the Frankfurt Arsenal calipers that I have up here, I've compared the two and they both work pretty well. Some nitrile gloves whenever I'm cleaning my firearms at the table. A Dillon Swedger for crimps as well. I have some reloading manuals up here that I use. I have 4 different ones, actually 3. I have 2 Hornady. I have the 9th and the 10th edition, but I do use multiple reloading manuals. They all work great. I keep a box of data cards whenever I reload or make test rounds. These are pre-printed and cut, and I'll just grab a few of these and write down the recipes that I loaded to. This way I can keep track of them, and when I come back, I'll enter that data on my computer so that it's in a little bit more organized fashion. Some spare parts. All of my spare parts for my presses go in here. It's good to have spare parts around. Something's going to break, a spring's going to break, or a little plastic piece or phonetic piece is going to break, or phenolic piece, I should say, not phonetic, but anyway, all the spare parts are in here. It comes in handy. I keep all of my conversions kits here for my 650. This way they're all in one spot. And I keep the tool heads in my closet, but these are the collets and the feed ramp, the different feed ramps off of the case feeder. This way I keep them all in a box. They're labeled with the OEM labels on them. The primer kit is this one here is actually the small primer conversion. I have the large primer conversion right now on the machine because I'm in the process of loading some 10mm, but this is the conversion for the small whenever I decide to go back and do a session of loading cartridges with small primers in them. Lighting is always good. I don't think you can ever get enough lighting. I do keep a small bucket here, put a little bit of oil in it, and this is how I lubricate the piston on my 650. I just take the brush and dab it in the oil and rub it on. This way I get a fresh coat of oil from time to time. My Hornady scale, I do use a digital scale, the GS1500. It's the first one I've ever bought. It's the only scale I've ever owned. I think it works great. A lot of people don't care for digitals. They use beam scales. You be the judge on what you want, but I've had no issues with the digital scale. This is my 650, and sorry about that, little camera shaking. And I reload multiple different calibers. I'm not going to get into all that, but just some of the options that I put on here. It's on the strong mount. I put the bullet tray on and the ergonomic handle. I've installed, obviously, the case feeders on there. Some lighting. I think lighting is one of the most important things. This is from Inline Fabrication. This is the LED light that sits in the center hole. And then also, my brother did install some extra LEDs for me, and you can see the difference. It really lights the world up in there. So it's easy to see inside the cases. Make sure powder's in there and it's all good to go. But I think having lighting in your press is very, very beneficial. I don't like to reload dark. The center area here, I do keep a towel because I'm constantly tossing reloaded cartridges on the towel, checking them with the calipers, making sure that the overall lengths, the crimps are good. I do check from time to time. I don't just check once and then go off. I do periodically check. So I keep a towel here just because I have cartridges bouncing and rolling around. Safety glasses, obviously, that should be number one at any reloading bench. A funnel for putting the powder back into my original containers comes in real handy, and also prevents from making too big of a mess. If you've ever spilled powder, you know what I'm talking about. Another container, I keep some various chargers in, some GoPro accessories and whatnot. Various tools on the reloading bench to make adjustments on the fly. This was actually my first press. This is a Dillon Square Deal B, and I love it. I have loaded tens and tens of thousands of rounds on it. It's great because it's a progressive press. It's easy to use. The setup is pretty simple. There's a lot of videos out here reviewing this thing. If you're not sure if you want to get into progressive or single stage, if you're just thinking about getting into reloading, this thing is not too overwhelming, believe me. But you know, that's obviously your choice and what you decide is best for you. Again, some lighting. There's an inline fabrication light that I've installed. It's this guy right here, and it's powered by this this little box. So you flip it on, and this is what it looks like. You know, again, you can never have too much lighting. The real estate to put additional lighting here is very, very limited. So inline fabrication did a good job of you know, figuring out a way to get some extra lighting for station number 2 whenever you're checking to make sure that there's good powder or a good drop of powder in your case. Obviously the bullet tray, again, a strong mount, and inline fabrication also sells an ergonomic handle for this. Dillon does not sell one. Inline fabrication does, so I got that. It works great. An old laptop from like 1967. It used to be my wife's. It's chock full of viruses, and it is absolutely useless, except for I do keep all my reloading data on here. So I just use it for Microsoft Excel. Whenever I go shoot on the data cards, I'll come back and load it onto here. This way it's a little bit easier to read. I have them all tabbed out by the calibers that I've shot over the years at the bottom. So I do keep all my data here, but just in case it ever crashes on me and it doesn't work anymore, that little folder back there has all my handwritten notes from when I chronograph rounds, just in case it decides to fail one day. This toolbox I had no use for, so I do keep some tools in here, you know, various tools and lubricants, whatnot, to maintain the machines. These are my torque wrenches. I just keep them inside because I hate to keep them out in the hot garage, but those have nothing to do with reloading. And this was actually my second press. This is the Lee, well, I don't know what model it is, but it's a Lee. And it's the cheapest Lee I could find. It's the cheapest single stage I could find, and I only use it for one function. There's a Redding GRX die in there that I use for all 40 cal and 10 millimeter, and it is to get out the Glock bulge, as it's called. And if you don't know what the Glock bulge is, this is a 40 caliber round that was fired out of a Glock 27, I believe. And if you see that bulge there towards the head, that's what happens when you don't have a fully supported chamber. Glocks were notorious for this back in the day. I'm pretty sure with the Gen 4s and the Gen 5s, they've corrected it. They've provided more support on the Gen 4s and Gen 5 chambers. But yeah, I use the GRX die for just 40 and 10 millimeter only. That's the only thing I use this press for, but it does come in handy. Some of the other things here up underneath my bench on this side, all these buckets are full of brass. They're all sorted, you know, 9 millimeter, 40, 45, 10 millimeter. I also got 380, 44 Magnum, and 38 Special down there. And all of this brass, this is all range brass, by the way, but it has been sorted. I know for a fact that there's no 380s in my 9. I know that there's no 45 gaps in my 45 ACP. I know that for a fact. All of these cases are resized, D-prime, wet tumbled with stainless media, and case gauge. So they are ready to go. And as far as I'm concerned, they're just as good as brand new brass you would buy off the shelf. Shot vac. If you don't have a shot vac, you are losing in the world of reloading. These things come in real handy. And I use it all the time. I like to keep a clean work area. That's why I keep a shop vac in nearby. This bucket here is used for my spent primers. I have this tube that runs down and it comes up through the table. I drill this hole here, and that's where all my spent primers drop down. So when I de-prime and resize, I do a whole bunch at one time, and this keeps all the primers in one spot, and it keeps all of the carbon and residual elements from whenever you de-prime from making a mess. So it all drops down in this bucket, and when I'm done resizing, I just throw it away. Air compressor, compressed air is good to have around. That's good for blowing off the machine from time to time. And then all these buckets down here have all of my actual reloaded cartridges stored by different calibers. And then just a kind of a general look at the bench, the whole thing, as you can see it here, that's what it looks like. If you notice, all of my presses sit just left of the legs. And the reason for that is I wanted the most stability possible. I hate having flex and bend whenever I'm, actually activating the ram of the press. And I built this table to basically support the entire earth, and it's pretty stable. I have it locked into the studs on the wall. I built it myself, just bought some wood at Lowe's, and I didn't stain it. I just coated it about 7 or 8 coats with polyurethane clear, and it actually turned out really good. I think I actually installed some bullets here. This is where hardware is holding some of my wood together, and so I countersumped those holes to put the hardware in. I was going to put wood filler in it and stain them, but I said, you know what, the 9mm fit pretty good, and then I have some larger hardware sitting in here, so I put a 45 round in there, and they fit perfect. So I don't know, it looks kind of cheesy, but hey, whatever. It's my bench, so I can do what I want. Anyway, so this is that was my kind of overview of the reloading bench and my reloading situation. I know I covered a lot real quick and didn't get into too much detail, but if you have any questions about any of the tooling I use or equipment, you want to know my thoughts on it, I'll be happy to give you a separate review or provide a separate review and talk about them in more detail. So hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you can steal some ideas off of my reloading situation and incorporate it into yours. Or if you have better ideas in your situation that you think I can maybe incorporate into mine, please share those. I would appreciate it. So that's all I got, guys. Again, Golf Shirt Shooter, hit the like button if you like the video. If you don't, well, hit the like button anyway, because it's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is just scroll down and hit the stupid button. So I would appreciate it. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and happy reloading.